Go Raditz, go Raditz, go! Go Raditz, go Raditz, go! Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now it goes without saying that the tales of Raditz have certainly had their fair shares of ups and downs on this channel since we started almost 3 years ago, chronicling the notion about whether he had turned good during the early days of Dragon Ball. You know, instead of being often the first 5 episodes of Dragon Ball Z, hardly a fitting tribute to the brother of the main character, but that's besides the point. Today, what the point is today is that we have to do our bit to make sure that this year, Raditz is seen as even more of an important and iconic villain within the boundaries of popular media, since we did a good job of that last year by, really bigging him up. But there is one domain that we had until recently not essentially covered due to the need to power through the main component of the series, and that is the realm of the movies. I did something similar to this back in November of 2016 when trying to tie in the movies with the main series in this video, which you can still look at, but I may go back and revise it with new ideas to make it even more cohesive for the 2020 line of videos. But for now, it is there for you to watch, and it's something I am still pretty pleased with. It was a lot of work. But we are now tying Raditz's place in the movies, all 13 of the original DBZ movies. Now we're not going to be counting Battle of Gods and Resurrection F or anything, since they are practically one and the same with the TV arcs. If you want to look at them, just go and watch Part 8 and Part 9. In the last part of this mini-series, we covered the first 6 movies of Dragon Ball Z. And for the first 3 movies, it was pretty easy because Raditz doesn't show up, since he's no longer alive during this period, the rough time area between the first, second and third movies, which are set around the time of the Saiyan saga approximately. In our universe, Raditz isn't brought back to life until around about the Namek saga, where he does his monkey business on Earth, so he doesn't really make an impact until the Lord Slug movie. But it's the 2 cooler movies where he really makes himself known and is very, very valued. And if you remember the last outing, that was a really momentous time, and where we actually got to see Raditz acquire Super Saiyan for the first time. Go watch that part if you haven't already, and if you're a fan of Raditz, obviously. Anyway, we got the second half of the DBZ movies to go over today, so that is what we will do. But just before we start, I'd like to point out that we have a special holiday design of Ranch and Papa, which is very limited to the season. You can get it via the store until December the 20th, and after that, it's gone. For good. Really. So get this and other merch at our store over at masakox.cc/store. Thank you for listening. We got to Super Android 13. And we open with Raditz joining the gang with a toddler Ranch as the gang are going shopping, either for Korin and Yajirobe's wedding registry, or simply, for the fact that there is a sale on for clothes because 90s stereotypes, am I right? In any case, Raditz is on errands from launch to go and get some stuff, and to look after his firstborn, obviously daddy-daughter time, when androids 14 and 15 appear and proceed to tear up the precinct until the heroes, obviously, lead the bots away to the Arctic without any jackets, Raditz, Trunks and Goku going off to fight. But this time, Gohan doesn't go with them, as he's charged to take his cousin home by Raditz. And at this time, he is very protective with Ranch, and he's earned this from Raditz because he and Chi-Chi are the only 2 people outside of his close family that he trusts with Ranch at the moment. As for Goku, So with Raditz tagging along as well, this means that there are 4 Super Saiyans fighting 3 androids in the Arctic. Raditz assisting his brother against the behemoth that is Android 13 and his magnificent trucker hat. When Raditz gets into some spot of bother, Piccolo uses that moment to make an entrance and really ham it up. Didn't think that you Super Saiyans needed my help anymore. You proved me wrong. Haha! Very funny, Green Man! With 13 struggling against 3 enemies, 14 and 15 are still dispatched by Vegeta and Trunks, but Vegeta needed a hand from Raditz, since he was a little weaker at this time in the story compared to the original, which goes a long way in terms of explaining the building resentment between the two at this time in the narrative. With Android 13 barely able to absorb the 2 detonators from 14 and 15, instead of, being allowed to easily do so in the original, the gang still have to fight Super Android 13, and the same result pans out, only with Raditz joining in, the beatdown. But providing a slightly more effective diversionary tactic than Gohan did whilst his brother is preparing the Spirit Saiyan bomb. There's no escaping those chompers. Then there is, of course, Broly. How does that go? Well, with Raditz there, he does provide a little bit more support, and with the addition of his energy to the pool, Goku is more able to defeat Broly at the end of it. So that's what you would expect. Yeah, I mean, to be honest. But in terms of the movie's content before that, I believe he would go with the group to the planet that is doomed by the comet Komori, just to see if this whole thing about Vegeta being a new Saiyan King was a wild goose chase, which it was. But he's still intrigued at Paragus' presence, and the idea that maybe more Saiyans survived the destruction of planet Vegeta. Needless to say, when he finds out that this whole thing was a trick, Raditz is mostly scoffing at Vegeta's falling for it, and this only deepens the rift between them even more than the previous movie. And I feel that this would make Vegeta fight more than in the original, where he was just, moping around. Think about it. Vegeta would never be able to live it down if he acted the way he did in the original movie with Raditz around there, especially after being made to look like a gullible oaf by Paragus. He would be reluctant to fight, sure, but we would get Vegeta lending a hand from the start after being ridiculed by his former minion, with the prince still getting his flare up after being cornered. It just happens in a different part of the movie. So, you can see that Raditz is making an indirect influence there. Next up is Bojack. I get the feeling that Raditz would be along for the ride to hang out with Trunks and take part in the tournament that's going on at the beginning of the movie, since it does involve prize money, and it would get Launch off of his back trying to find a job. I got money, honey, schnookums! Also, he does have to provide for a kid as well. It could only get him brownie points, so why not? Now, instead of Doskoi being sent into the rocket ship for the finals to the desert land to then meet his barbaric fate at the hands of Beidou, it's Raditz who goes there, and makes relatively light work of the minion Bojack. But he does note that the tricks were very suspicious. The blue dude had tried to strangle him and play underhandedly, unlike the rules of the tournament had stipulated. I mean, the guy who runs it is shady, but not that shady. He spots the camera filming the entire thing, and uses this moment to A, look good for it, and B, tell the organizer that something is up, and they should have a better selection system next time, if there is one. Just then, he can sense Trunks' energy faltering and goes to investigate, only to find Vegeta doing the same thing. This leads to a tense exchange before ultimately the two of them setting this whole thing aside, since there is an even greater power imposing itself. You see that a lot in Dragon Ball, that being Bojack, of course. Their bickering will have to wait. Now, with Beidou no longer present, Trunks is the sole distraction of Bujin, who is pretty angry at Koga being ended by this bozo. That is until Raditz shows up and takes him out with a drop elbow to the head. I've had it with these creeps and their weird, wacky powers! Him referring to Goldo, obviously, because Bujin kind of looks like Goldo. Now, with Bujin down too, Zangief is having a tough time with Trunks since he's not in prison thanks to the brother of Goku's assist. Despite this though, the gang still struggle a lot to cope with Bojack's transformed state, although the addition of Raditz does help make it less of a challenge, but it's still a challenge. And Raditz does react to when Zangief is betrayed because, actually, Zangief looks a lot like Launch, only blue. He screams and goes full power Super Saiyan just because, and gets a punch on Bojack, which does hurt him, but then regrets it and is slammed to the ground, acting as a distraction for Gohan instead of Mr. Satan in the movie. Goku then aids Gohan from afar like before, and the movie pans out like before. Then there's the next Broly movie, Broly's Second Coming, the most boring movie of the lot. This time, we get Ranch's first movie presence, as she is with Goten and Trunks, as well as Videl to help gather the Dragon Balls to show off to Gohan's girlfriend. Ranch being particularly judgmental of Videl from the very start, since she looks up to her older cousin so much. She just wants to make sure that this girl is the one for her cousin. Anyway, with Ranch there, she sees Videl smacking Goten, and this, of course, makes Ranch flare up into Super Saiyan and tell her to back off and leave her cousin alone. You're on thin ice. Now, speaking of ice, the ice crackles and explodes much sooner than before, since not only did Goten cry, Ranch's power up to Super Saiyan stoked the interest of Broly, who was imprisoned by the ice. Then, we see Videl having to fend off Broly. Ranch considers to just let Broly do what he does. Only for a second though, before coming in to defend Videl. But then, the three kids have to fend him off. Okay, with Ranch there, they managed to find the Dragon Balls without the chicanery of crystal balls being around, but the same error of trying to summon Shenron from behind a waterfall occurs. In this timeline, Goku still comes down to help, and Ranch is now present for the family Kamehameha, and thusly ends Broly. Now, where was Raditz in all of this? Well, he did get to the battlefield just after Broly hit the sun. He's in full power Super Saiyan as the gang have finished and have collapsed. Ah, man! I wanted to deck Broly in the schnoz! If only Kakarot taught me that teleport thingy. Needless to say, it provides some light relief at the end of the movie. Bio Broly? Well, I won't linger on this, but that goes the same as it does in the original really, with only Ranch coming along for the ride as well. Broly's power is still greater, even with the third person's help, but Ranch at least says what the audience is thinking, and is less than impressed at Trunks' brash behaviour, which lessens the cringe considerably, but yeah, not much changes in this one. Same goes for Fusion Reborn actually. I'm not showing favouritism about this, since by now Vegeta has caught up to Super Saiyan 2, and had just at the time of this narrative bested him as Majin Vegeta, so Gogeta is just as strong against Janemba. Raditz is on Earth meanwhile, and merely aids in the eradication of the zombies on Earth, alongside an eventual fusion. Now, which fusion amongst the kids? Go Tanks. Masako, no three-way fusion? No Ranten? No Ronks? Well, Ronks doesn't get debuted until after Boo, as you know, and Ranten is showcased in theory during the TV series, so you gotta balance it out. Then we have Wrath of the Dragon. That actually goes by the same as before as well, since it's primarily a Trunks story. Just because Ranch and he are somewhat connected in the story, doesn't mean that they have to be joined at the hip or anything and Ranch has to be included. And besides, this story is very, very important for any semblance of character development for the character of Trunks to occur. This needs to happen and be untouched. Now as for the battle with Hirudegarn, Raditz does help in the chaos, but he's still no match for Hirudegarn as a whole, whose offing requires the use of Super Saiyan 3 Dragon Fist to stop him. Raditz still particularly unimpressed by Goku's stupid-looking hair. So with that, the DBZ movies are covered. Yes, I know that a fair few of these 13 movies do tend to follow the same way as before, but you need to consider that the movies are usually less than an hour long and need to end with Goku getting the win in some way, save for the exception of the Bojack movie with Gohan doing so, but it's still a Son family member. And Raditz and Ranch's inclusion cannot and really would not change the outcome much to make it so that Goku wouldn't get the win. It's just not what Toriyama would do. Goku is the main character here, plain and simple, sadly. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you're going to stick around on the channel, be sure to check out the daily advent rundown of my top 24 DBZA moments / Scream series going on right now throughout the entire month of December. But the question needs to be asked. What did you guys think? Did you think Raditz was well presented? How would you have gone about things? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!